Now to the UK, where a number of British MPs from the Prime Minister's own party have reportedly submitted letters of no confidence. Boris Johnson is under fire for breaking COVID rules and holding parties at his Downing Street residence last year at the height of the coronavirus pandemic, when such gatherings were banned. With his political leadership hanging in the balance, he faced Parliament at Prime Minister's questions and faced down calls to go.
No matter the excuse, there is no excuse for taking the British people for fools. Will the Prime Minister agree it is now time for him to resign?
No, Mr. Speaker, but what I can tell her is that, as I said to the House last week, I apologise sincerely for any misjudgments that were made, but she must contain her impatience, Mr. Speaker, and wait for the inquiry next week before she draws any of the conclusions that she's just asserted.
Straight to London, where we join DW correspondent Charlotte Chelson-Pill. Welcome, Charlotte. This was a scheduled appearance before Parliament. How did Mr Johnson defend his position?
Well, this had been billed as a make-or-break day for the Prime Minister, given the level of criticism that has been levelled at him over this series of allegations involving gatherings at Downing Street. And he was a much more defiant figure today than the Prime Minister that we saw yesterday. In an interview yesterday, he was really being grilled on the details of what he knew, particularly about one gathering in particular that he's known to have attended. And he appeared pretty defeated in that interview. Today, though, came out fighting, deflected a series of questions on Partygate, as it's being called here, which dominated Prime Minister's questions, as I'm sure you can imagine. He referred back to what many in his government have been over the last few weeks, the investigation that is ongoing into these allegations, saying we will all have to wait for the findings of that, and was really keen to stress some of the achievements of the government throughout the pandemic, including on the vaccine programme. Now, whether that will have been enough to impress members of his own party amid this speculation about rising numbers calling for a no confidence vote, that still remains to be seen.
And this is not the first time that Mr Johnson has faced calls for his resignation. I wonder, is his position still tenable?
Well, there has been a huge amount of public anger about these allegations for weeks and weeks now. The airways have been absolutely full of people sharing their tragic stories about the sacrifices they made throughout this pandemic. And of course, the narrative is that they were making sacrifices while the Prime Minister and some of his colleagues, the allegations are, were breaking the rules that they themselves made. Now, this public anger is not lost on members of the Prime Minister's own party. Indeed, it's shared by a number of them, some of whom have publicly called for his resignation. We heard that again in a standout moment of Prime Minister's question time. The former Brexit Minister, David Davis, said, in the name of God, go. A really powerful moment during Prime Minister's question time. Another member of the Prime Minister's own party, in fact, defected to the opposition party just minutes before. I think that gives you a sense of some of the anger that the Prime Minister is facing. Now, it's not yet clear how close to the threshold of calling for a no-confidence vote that the Prime Minister is. But if you listen to members of the opposition who've been on the airwaves today, they think it's not a question of when, if the Prime Minister goes, but when.
Thank you for that, DW correspondent Charlotte Chelson-Pill in London.